Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Malor.
And thank you to everybody who is continuing to listen to our podcast, and welcome to everybody if this is your first time. And also big thank yous to everybody who has left us a review and very nice words. There's some really lovely comments and reviews, and we really appreciate it.
We absolutely do. Seriously, thank you, everyone who has been leaving reviews. If you haven't and you'd like to, you can absolutely do so now on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And I think that's kind of it, if I'm not mistaken. I know that there's a few other podcast servicing websites, services, podcast hosting places, but I'm not sure how many of them have areas to leave reviews. So it's more just if you listen to Apple, if you listen on Spotify, and you'd like to leave a review, we would love it. If not, no worries. We will continue to talk into your ears.
Yes, you can also follow us on both of those platforms. You can follow us on Instagram at Only a Bag Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
you can send us a message on Instagram or email us at onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And we have a website, onlybag.com, which has a couple of articles. It's slowly growing, but it's hopefully going to be growing with some velocity in this new year. Happy New Year, everyone, to everyone listening. This is our first official, auguri, our first official episode of the new year, where we put up the last episode, I think the last day of last year. So this is the first episode of this year. So thank you all to who has come, who is coming, who has arrived to our episode. And if you'd like to support us financially, rather than just with the wishes, which we appreciate the wishes as well. We kind of sort of like
we run on wishes.
We run on wishes. Yes. It's sort of like the good vibes makes us go kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But if you'd like to support us financially and you're also planning a trip, you can support us by using our booking link or our trusted house sitters link. If you like the idea of house sitting, signing up for a house sitting website. And then I think it's basically some amount of money. I think it's $130 for a year, $140 for a year-long subscription.
For trusted house sitters?
For trusted house sitters.
Yeah, it's one of the more expensive. We've talked about that before, but it's totally worth it.
It absolutely is, especially because it's, the cost of a single hotel room for the year. And if you house sit for more than a single night, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. So if that is interesting to you, those links are down in the description. And we appreciate, again, seriously, so much for you all listening and leaving reviews. So without further ado, we are going to talk a little bit very quickly just about some interesting news, and then we're going to hop into today's episode, which will be on Le Befana.
La Befana.
La Befana. Nailed it on the second try. And the news is actually kind of interesting. I actually only learned about this today, and it's a bit sad in terms of news, but there is a fellow by the name of Mauro Morandi, and he was the protector of an island called Budelli, Budelli. It's a very small island off of Sardinia, and it's a sort of like archipelago. And I think it was in the late 70s and the 80s, he was basically kind of like done, fed up with life. He wanted to find some peace and quiet. So he's like, I'm going to sail in my catamaran and I'm going to go to the Peloponnesian Islands. He did not get far because as soon as he left, basically, there's problems with the catamaran. So he pulls over. I don't know what you do on a boat. For those of you who do sail and are listening to this, there's probably a technical term for it, but he pulled over. He docked in, I think it's called La Maddalena, and it's essentially the biggest island of this archipelago. And while he was there, he learned that the current caretaker of Budelli was retiring. He was old and he was retiring. And so this guy's like, that sounds perfect. And Budelli is an island that has nobody living on it. He was the only person living on it. And the former caretaker, now Mauro, was living in a converted World War II bunker. Weird. Exactly. And unfortunately, where the story kind of takes a bit of a sad turn is a few years ago, I think in 2021, the island used to be a private island, but since the 90s, you were forbidden from walking on the beaches because it had pink sand. And you were not allowed to take the sand. And they couldn't figure out ways for people to not take the sand. So they forbade people from going on the beaches. And what you could do is actually go on a trail behind the beach. And Mauro was one of these people leading these walks behind the trail, and he'd teach you about the ecosystem of the island, and he'd keep it clean. He would walk. He himself would walk the beaches and kind of pick up debris if debris had washed ashore and any trash and things like that. So he was kind of like keeping it safe. But the island, I think, fell. It was privately owned, and the company or the person that owned it was bankrupt and was trying to sell it to an Australian owner. The Italian courts basically forbade it because they didn't want a different private entity from a different country owning an island that is in Italy, but also that's an ecological reserve. And even though they promised to keep it an ecological reserve, it was one of those kind of like iffy things. So now it is owned by the National Park System of Maddalena. I think it's a Maddalena. And unfortunately, they essentially evicted him from the island because they're like, nobody can live on the island. And he has like a fridge, and he had thing like an internet connection.
Okay.
He had an Instagram account. He would post and comment and follow and reply. And they essentially were like, you have to leave. Like, this is going to be a basic and ecological, not resort in the terms of like, in the sense of like, you can go and stay there, I guess, but like a sanctuary.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be sort of nobody's supposed to be there kind of thing. So he left. He was evicted in like 2021, which is a little bit weird in terms of, if you cast your minds back that far, that was sort of the height of the not the height, that was the second wave pandemic, I would say, especially here in Italy, where that was a kind of, I remember 2021, we went through those shutdowns all over again. And it was interesting, there's an article about him, and he's just like, for 40 something years, it's been silent. And all of a sudden, he's just like, it's so much noise everywhere. And unfortunately, so I guess the news is just that he passed away, but he was sort of I only recently learned about him, and I thought it was fascinating, but he was basically kind of I don't want to say folk hero, but he was like the hermit of the island kind of thing. And we've talked about in a previous episode, there's a very, very small island barely off the coast of Naples, like 2 meters off the coast of Naples. And that used to have a hermit living on as well. So it's just interesting. There's some sort of lineage of hermits living on islands off the coast of Italy. But he was, arguably one of the last ones. It's just sort of the guy who lived on the island off of Sardinia, and but never basically, unfortunately, passed away, I think recently, last day or two. And it seems like, going from this place where you're, I don't know, it's silent, it's beautiful, it's tranquil, and then to the I think he's from Modena, so it just was like he couldn't quite get back used to that flow. Of course not. So wow. bit of a tragic news, but
it's understandable that the government or whoever was changing the system of how the island was existing. It makes sense. From my point of view, I can understand that, but that's such a bummer that somebody who is there and it seems like protecting the island and being responsible there, that this just upended his whole existence there.
And it's not quite actually related at all, but it makes me think of weirdly like copyright law, because it's a lot of times like when someone like an artist like you are doing something, with it that deals with another company's IP, then, you can get like not sued under copyright law, but they can ask you to take it down off the internet or whatever. And a lot of times people will say like, well, why? It's just a small time artist. They're not really hurting anybody. They're not making money off of it. And it goes back to the fact that if they allow one person through, then it opens up the door to anybody coming through. And I'm wondering if it's the same thing where like, I have no problem with Mauro living on the island, but if he creates a precedent for you can live in essentially a national park, an ecological zone, a place where no one's supposed to live, it might open the door to other people using it as a loophole, and then it's impossible to close it once it's open, kind of thing. So it might have been like, because there's a petition signed with like hundreds of thousands of names on it, kind of thing. But it might have just been one of those
to keep him there.
For him to still live there, because I think the owner that was going to buy it in Australia had already pledged to keep him on as a caretaker, and it kind of makes sense, because like now they have to, like, send somebody out there every once in a while to clean the beaches and this and that.
Right, so because obviously pollution and things are going to wash up on the beaches that don't originate there. Right,
and it's not like it's that far away from Sardinia. So in terms of just like, it's right off the coast. So all that being said, bit of an interesting news, sad passing, but yeah, related to Italy, I suppose.
But what a cool life that he had.
What a wild life, right? So we all come to Italy looking for something, and he did not have to go very far to find it, it seems like, even though he's from Italy. Yes. He never quite got out of the Mediterranean, but that's okay. I'm sure that was nicer to find it closer to home.
Yeah, wow.
So with all that being said, I guess we're going to talk about La Befana today.
Yes, we're going to talk about La Befana.
That's right, La Befana. La Befana.
La Befana.
One of us is doing really well in our Italian classes. The other one, not so much. And I'll let you figure out who is who.
I'm going to say something in Italian in a moment, and if you speak Italian fluently, you might want to skip through it, because I know I'm going to get it wrong just because we're on the podcast. I think my Italian is not terrible, generally.
It's actually quite good, yeah.
But I've listened to a couple places where I say something vague in Italian on the podcast, and then I go, oh no, Darcy, that was wrong. My pronunciation.
Sort of like stage fright, despite the fact there's only 2 of us here. But I think knowing that like potentially millions of people are going to listen to this, so far that has not been the case. But it's the possibility that keeps.
But you're out there listening, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about La Befana, who is the Epiphany witch. I call her the Christmas witch, and that's not accurate at all.
But it's kind of close.
Yeah. So she is a lot like Santa Claus, we will find out. But I do just want to read it's a little nursery rhyme that I heard yesterday, because yesterday was Epiphany, January 6th, and I needed to go up to the market up in the piazza. So I went up to the market thinking that things would be closed. But
As in a store. Not
Yes.
there's no market like a Christmas market
Sorry,
or
yes,
anything.
the corner market, which is not on a corner, the alimentari.
The bodega, I guess, if you're in New York City.
Yes, the grocery store here. And so it's in the piazza, and I thought things would be closed, but I thought I'd give it a try. And things were open for about half the day, I think. And to my surprise, in the piazza was this little La Befana festival for little kids, which was adorable. There was a little crepe cart and a DJ and a woman singing and face painting. And it seemed like a meet and greet La Befana booth, but
Wild.
it was a man dressed up as La Befana, and La Befana is a grandma sort of character. We'll get more into what she really looks like, but it was almost like if you went to meet and greet Santa, but there was an elf there temporarily. That's the vibe I was getting.
It's like 48 degrees, so it's just all over the place. I feel like this thing. Not that it plays into it, but I just want to imagine people. It's shivering. We're not like a nice weather. It's like everyone's cold, and there's a DJ and crepes, and La Befana's helper.
The kids were having a great time.
They don't know they're cold.
They
They're
were
fine.
vibing. They were loving it. And so I get there, and initially the woman singing was trying to get a little kid to sing the Italian version of Old
MacDonald?
There we go.
You're saying in Italian, like, Old MacDonald, come dice.
Old MacDonald, which was adorable. And then she sang this little La Befana nursery rhyme. So it has a lot of verses and iterations. However, I think the classic one is this. Again, y'all who speak Italian, bear with me. Here it goes. La Befana viene da... okay, I already messed it up.
Amazing
wow.
start. I'm so excited.
I'm going to imagine no one is listening to me, and I'm just going to say it.
I will stop looking at you.
La Befana viene di notte, con le scarpe tutte rotte, con le toppe alla sotana, viva viva la Befana.
Ooh.
So, in
Why does she
English,
have broken shoes?
that's just her thing.
Okay.
She walks around a lot. She's got holes in her shoes. I think she has holes in her shoes, but rota is broken.
But I'm assuming like broken, like just like banged up shoes, not
Yeah.
like that's like I don't think I've never heard the expression like, oh, you got broken shoes, like as a thing.
No, I think
Though
they're
it sounds
just like
kind of Italian.
old
Like if somebody
used
was like,
shoes.
the Italian neighborhood I used to have broken shoes, and everyone's like, what's that mean? Oh, I was tired of walking. I have no idea. I don't know what that would even mean. So sorry, the English translation.
So the English translation is La Befana, the Befana, comes at night with her shoes all broken, with patches on her skirt. Long live La Befana.
It rhymes so much better in Italian.
It does, yes. And that was me. I actually have a direct translation in English on my computer just because I copy pasted it, but I changed the wording a little bit only because it makes more sense the way I said it.
That makes sense. I'm also really hung up on the fact that we're trying to sing Old MacDonald because a lot of those are like oink, oink, oink and like a moo, 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 but those are not the sounds they use in Italian.
No, they're different sounds in Italian.
It's like, so that's not even the same song.
No, but it's the same tune
Oh, okay. Were they singing in Italian or English?
in Italian.
Oh my God, but Old MacDonald is a nightmare to say in Italian. Old
Yes,
MacDonald.
I think that's kind of how they said it.
Old MacDonald. That's a nightmare.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't like Old MacDonald in Italian. I know the little kid wasn't singing a whole lot. I think when I first got there, I could hear their little voice, and then whenever I finally reached the top, it's like I got the sense that the little kid realized other people were looking at them and stopped singing because then all I could hear was the woman singing like, and what does the wolf say? I kept hearing and the lupo blah 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 blah, and the little kid went silent.
Howls? I don't know.
I don't know, but apparently this old MacDonald
That's
has
also
a wolf
doesn't live
his
on a farm.
I don't know anything.
What kind of nightmare farm are they raising here?
I don't know, but it was adorable.
I love this. So that is La Befana. I think that's actually a really good way. That's a really good intro though for La Befana.
Thank you.
So what else have you learned about this lovely, not Christmas witch as we've just learned 10 seconds ago, but Epiphany witch?
Yes. Okay, so let's kind of go over what she looks like. So you know who to look out for, basically.
When you're visiting Italy
when she's visiting,
during
yes.
January.
And I just want to, maybe I should say this off the top. I say who to look out for. I've always understood, always, as if I've always known about her.
I love that. For years and
I've known
years.
about her in my heart.
For the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Or 8.
I think not even, yeah, like 6 probably, because I didn't know about her for a few years that we were visiting. And until I should say, I think someone told us about her, and then I started noticing in little shops around Christmas time, a lot of people sell stuffed figures of La Befana,
Yeah.
and they have different personalities, which I love.
Like they sub out all the Santa Clauses for all the witches.
Yeah, and I love
Which is
it.
also, though, that when somebody told us, it was one of those things we were asking, like, who it was. Like, oh, like, the Christmas witch. And we're like, that doesn't make any sense to somebody who's not from here. So could you explain it to somebody? But it's one of those things I think, like, you never... I guess it's the difficulty of not realizing how normal something is to you until you try to explain it to somebody else. And you're like, I sound just unbelievable right now.
Yeah.
And you're like, no. She comes around. She rides on a broom. She just hands out candy. Like, you've never heard of her? You don't have her? I'm like, no.
She's La Befana.
Yeah. We don't take candy from strangers. That's a big thing. Different culture.
Except for Santa.
Well, I don't think he gives candy. He just gives coal or presents.
Oh, I got some candy in my stocking sometimes. I got a
That was
chocolate
from your
orange.
parents. Excuse me.
Okay.
Santa Claus is not passing out chocolate oranges.
Okay, evidently those were from my parents, and some of the gifts were from Santa.
It's very English, though, the chocolate orange. Is it like the little chocolate slices or whatever
Yeah.
it is? That's wild. It feels very English.
It's because my grandfather always had them growing up.
But they're milk chocolate. Or are
Yeah.
they like dark chocolate? Because I
No,
think
it
dark
was milk
chocolate would be really
chocolate.
good. Milk chocolate's yeah.
I know, but it was good as a kid. I actually didn't really like it because you know me, I don't like fruit in my chocolate.
Absolutely.
I know. Okay, so
Moving on.
so La Befana does bring candy is our segue. And I just want to say off the top that for some reason Grimm, as in Grimm's fairy tales guy, he thought he needed to say something about La Befana at a certain point, and I'm speaking with indignation because he has a quote saying that she was a terror to children. And that is not true.
I've read his books.
At all.
Everybody is a terror to children in
Yes,
his
that's
stories.
everyone is terrible in his mind. So I just want to say that she's a grandma character, really, and she's very sweet and kind and lovely.
Didn't Cinderella's stepsisters cut off the back of their feet to fit the golden slipper?
Yeah.
So I don't think he's like somebody to really take after.
No, he's just a horror writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's just throwing that out there.
No,
in
that's a
terms
good
of
point. Really good point.
Setting the bar real low there, Mr. Grimm.
It was, I looked up several different, like 6 different sources for this. Although we do know about La Befana, I just wanted to get some of the details right. And someone happened to put that in one of their articles that they wrote, and I just thought that was kind of wild that he just slipped into history and was like, hey guys, she's actually a terror.
It's sort of like that person who takes to Twitter, or whatever it is called
Mm-hmm.
now, but he takes to Twitter, and everyone's like, you don't really need to chime in on this. Like, yeah, but I'm going to anyway, because the people need to hear me speak on this subject. I'm like,
Yeah.
but you don't need to add anything to it.
That's absolutely the energy of that.
Right?
Yes.
Except back in the day, I don't know, he's like rolling out the printing press to
Yes.
flame his enemies.
He put a lot of energy into that, I think.
Love the excitement.
Okay, enough of flaming Grimm there. I'm saying that to myself, not to you,
Okay.
because I could go on. No. Okay. La Befana. Let's talk about how she looks. So I've said that she's a grandma character, and she is, it's interesting, a lot of people, when they write it, put old in quotation marks. She's an old, quote unquote, woman.
Oh, I thought it's like old grandma. I was like, it makes sense. It could be like a 40-year-old grandma.
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah,
But
but
I
she's
read, like-
old lady.
So you said 2 olds there instead of just
I
the one
did.
in quotation marks.
And I would say the idea is that she's ancient, meaning like, I don't know, 80s, 90s, which I'm not saying is ancient. That is just
You
sort
could have
of
saved
when-
yourself there and said she's ancient, like 190, but you instead said
Okay,
like,
I'm of two minds about this when I'm speaking. She is ancient in that she has been around for hundreds of years. However, I think when she's in like an illustration, she is shown as someone probably in her 80s, 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But then the little stuffed ones that you see in the stores are kind of plump little, not very old women who are like in their 70s maybe.
yeah,
I don't know. They're all lovely and wise and
white and gray hair is what we're thinking here,
yes,
basically.
yes. White hair is how she's described.
Okay.
As having white hair. So, and another interesting thing about her face is that she has a large crooked nose, sort of that stereotypical witch nose, I think.
Interesting.
In fact, the guy who was, as I kind of said, like Befana's elf. She
Yeah.
doesn't have an elf, but that was the vibe he had. Had a big fake nose, which seemed a little problematic, but he was impersonating La Befana, and it's a very specific nose that I've seen. So large crooked nose is what she has. And some people say that she kind of hunches over,
Okay.
And I think a lot of that comes from this idea that she is cold because she comes around in the wintertime. So she's like a little older lady who's very chilly. So she kind of hunches over.
Amazing.
I know. Okay, so her outfit is very specific. As we've said, the cute little stuffed versions of her you'll see in shops have different personalities. So they're not all wearing the same outfit. And there's also different versions of her in, I was going to say pop culture, but that's not it, in like advertising and things like that.
Okay.
Where she's a little bit distorted. She'll have, I think what we think of as like a witch's hat, the pointy hat.
Yeah, the pointy black hat.
Mm-hmm. So she'll have that sometimes in like advertisements and things, but that's not what she really looks like.
Love that. I love it's very specific.
Yes. So what she actually wears instead of a pointy hat is a kerchief around her head.
Nice, like older Italian ladies.
Yeah, classic grandma,
Like
Italian
babushka,
grandma.
but whatever the Italian version of a babushka is.
Nonna.
No. Oh, yeah, that would have been easier. Could have gotten there by myself.
Okay, so she has her little kerchief around her head, and she has a wool shawl. And specifically, people say that her shawl is covered in ash because she comes down the chimney. Although I think her whole outfit is covered in ash.
Yeah, that's really impressive. It's just a shawl.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how does she fit down a chimney? I don't understand any of this. Sorry, keep going. I don't know how Santa fits down a
She's a
chimney.
small lady.
But we have a small chimney.
I don't know. I've seen some small Italian ladies.
Okay.
They are shorter than me, and I'm quite short.
Well, I was thinking more of a width thing.
Yeah.
Like, the level in my head is a rotund lady.
I don't think she
red
is
cheeks.
rotund. I think she's fairly thin.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, this sounds like 1600s Italian people, like, just eating turnips. Or something.
We'll get to what she eats in a second.
Love it.
Okay, so she has her kerchief. She has her shawl. She has a long skirt, which has been patched because it has holes in it. And that is very classic. I think most Befanas, if they have a pointy hat or not, they will have a patched skirt. And she has worn out shoes, as we know from the nursery
Cotton Eye
rhyme.
Joe thing happening here, isn't it?
Well, she lives in the forest.
I know. I just kind of like
she's a
that, though.
witch.
I'm wondering if it's also like, reading into it, like there's some sort of book talking about like the, I don't know. It's a people's hero sort of thing because everybody had patched clothes or, would you say holes in the shoes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Worn out shoes.
Worn out shoes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And she rides a broom. Classic.
Absolutely.
Some people say that she rides the broom backwards.
Yeah, you
meaning
mentioned that one. I don't. Yeah.
The bristly part is up near her face, essentially, rather than being to the back.
The opposite of aerodynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't
Where
think
does she
that
fly
can...
around backwards? But like, right?
I love that.
So
She's
she
crazy
could just
lady.
be like going in reverse everywhere.
She likes to live life on the edge.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that almost makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost because it's like it's you can go in reverse places fine, but like it's almost like sitting backwards in a car, and then driving forward. No, I'll make this make
car's
sense.
aerodynamic both ways, so that doesn't really make sense.
I guess so. It's like, yeah.
I don't know, but I find it fascinating, and she's a kind of kooky, crazy lady.
So what does she do?
Okay, so she comes around on the night before Epiphany.
So January 5th, for
Yes.
those following along at home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nathaniel. And delivers gifts and mostly sweets and treats to kids who have been good, well behaved. And she delivers coal and garlic to the naughty children. But classically in parts of Italy that were more impoverished or families who didn't have as much money, she would deliver sticks instead of coal and garlic.
That seems like somehow throwing shade. Like you can't even afford a coal stove.
I like to think that maybe they couldn't afford the coal stove, so they had just a fireplace, so
And
she
then she's
brought them
like-
firewood.
Right, but then
That's
also
how
like
she
if they're
lives in
being
my mind.
bad, I don't understand. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I'm always fascinated by that. It's sort of like if you've been bad, I'm going to give you something to keep you warm, but if you've been good, you're just going to have dental problems.
Yeah, but kids love candy.
That's a really good point.
And in some parts of the country, instead of so essentially she'll leave these gifts in socks or stockings, a lot like Santa Claus. But in some parts of the country, she leaves it in shoes.
Yes, okay.
And there's a bit of folklore around that where some people say that because her shoes were worn out, if children left out a pair of their shoes as like an offering to her, like, hey, take my shoes, you
Like
need
she's
new
a
ones.
fairy. I kind of like that.
And she does. A lot of people kind of refer to her as being fairy-like or part fairy, or maybe she's a fairy, maybe she's a witch. We don't really know. So you leave out your shoes, and she puts little treats in your shoes.
Because I remember that was years ago when we first learned in Love Befana. It was the kids were leaving out their shoes like overnight for like the.
Mm-hmm.
But also you can buy from the stores, which again this makes no sense unless again you understand Love Befana is La Befana, LA space BEFANA.
Yes.
It's a strange word because I want to say Befana, but it's Befana.
I think some people pronounced her name Befana whenever we first learned about her.
Okay.
Befana.
La Befana. Because it sounds like if you say it quickly, La Befana and Epiphana, like Epiphany, Epiphana, it sounds very similar.
Yes.
But no, since you can buy the candy, you can go ahead and buy it in a plastic shoe at the grocery store. Like it'll be a little treat thing. And it's like, and again, that makes no sense unless you know what La Befana is.
Uh-huh.
Which
but
is wild.
it also makes no sense because Befana's not going to bring that to you. She's not going to go
Bring
grocery
you a
shopping
shoe.
a shoe with candy in it. You
Right,
put out
it's
your
wild.
own shoe.
And she'll put the
puts
candy in it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Insane.
I don't know about that one.
Makes no
So
sense.
let's quick note of what La Befana eats, because I think
What she eats.
yeah, what she eats.
Okay.
Because I think we might be the same person.
I
I
love
might
it.
be La Befana.
I love that there's like no real knowledge on her, but we know what she eats.
Yeah, because okay, so
I love this.
for Santa Claus, you have to leave out treats, right? You leave out cookies
I understand.
and milk.
Okay, of course, yes.
I mean, generally during the rest of the year, she eats like I don't know berries from the forest where she lives. I have no idea.
She's
but
also a bear, apparently.
I was trying to think of what grows in the forest. She probably has a small garden.
I was thinking, yeah.
She's fine.
She
But
eats like cedar wood and fresh salmon. I'm not really sure.
so on the night that she comes, you have to leave out a little treat for her, much like you would for Santa Claus. But for her, she likes to have a glass of wine
Of course she does.
and little nibbles, whatever you have.
A little moose-bouche.
Yes,
A little
just a little snack and a glass of wine is all she needs.
Tarali. Some nuts, perhaps. There's a cultured person right there.
I know. I think I might be her.
I think so. You'd give out treats and also exchange for glasses of
If
wine
you
and
give
treats.
me a glass of wine and some snacks, I'll bring you some candy.
Absolutely. That's a good trade. You don't like
That's a
sweets.
great exchange.
You,
Yeah.
you don't not hate candy, but you're not a fan of candy.
I prefer salty snacks.
You really do.
Yes. So I love that.
That's fascinating.
It is, right? She's a cool lady.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what she means, sort of culturally.
Yeah. Hit me with it.
Okay, so she is essentially a symbol of death and rebirth of nature,
Okay.
as well as being a symbol of the end of the year and the beginning of a new one.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. To, given the time.
And that will come up a little bit later, so just remember that. So she's also she arrives on the 12th night after the winter solstice, according to the Roman Julian calendar.
Which okay, that's what's interesting. I was gonna interrupt you to ask that because I'm struggling to how to figure out this business words because it was under the Julian calendar that you just told us in the 2 episodes ago that they added 2 months into the year. I guess it's June and July,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then that threw off the Christmas days, whatever it was, because then they basically made Christmas kind of the day of Sol Invictus because it was like, oh, it kind of falls around the same time now. And I was curious how this one played into it because if La Befana comes around in the new year, but in the Julian calendar we would have already been in the new year for a few months now, or no?
No, so the new year is at the solstice. No, sorry, I don't know about the new year, but I will say that the solstice is on the 25th of December, according to the Julian calendar.
Which is the Sol Invictus Day.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is the birth of the invincible sun. Go back and listen if you want to our previous episode. Where we
Not
talk
a previous
all about,
episode, but 2 episodes ago.
Yes, where we talk all about this. So the 25th is the solstice, winter solstice, and then 12 days after that is when La Befana arrives.
So there's 2 extra months of just throwing me off for no reason, I guess.
I think so, but it is a good question because,
Do they just make the other months like shorter?
well, according to some people, the 12 days between the 25th and the 6th represent the months of the year. So this would have been after they'd already established the
Right,
2
yeah.
extra months.
Because also you can't establish one of the months, June, I mean, and then call it and have the summer solstice, because I would throw out the other summer solstice. It also like brings for me the question of like, we already learned that Ferragosto, if you want to go back and listen to our Ferragosto episode, Ferragosto was already in ancient Roman times, the time where it was already like the harvest is done. Take the month off because there's nothing to do. So it's kind of, I'm kind of curious, like when they added the 2 months, if they just sort of split up what was already split up. I'm like, because you can't just, I mean, obviously you can't add to a year, but my point I think is like, you already have like, we already have end of year celebrations. We already have the longest day of the year things, and you can't move the longest day of the year. So where do you find this extra time? And I'm wondering if they found it just by carving out, like taking a couple of days.
Yeah, they would have just had to reorganize the amount of days in months.
Imagine what a nightmare that would have been.
Yeah.
Like already right now, I can barely keep it straight. And somebody said we're going to add 2 more months. Already we have 18-day long months and not like 30-day long months. I'm going to be all over the place. I'm going to have no idea what's going on anymore.
28-day long months?
Well, you have like 28 to 32, 31.
Yeah, you said 18. And I was
no,
like,
I'm saying if we go to 18. Because they take from other months. It's like, it's just going to be a nightmare for me. Or
I don't
for
know. I'm
anybody
finding
else.
this all very confusing.
Well, it's like, when they switch, like what, Sweden switched the side of the road they drove on one night in like the 60s.
What?
Yeah, there's a few countries that like switched what side of the road they drive on. They went from the left to the right or right to the left. Well, I don't know if anyone went from the left. They went from the English driving side to the, for lack of a better descriptor, the American driving side, which that cannot be right. But
from left to right.
Right. And they just do it in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like but imagine like you go to work one day and you drive on one side of the road, and you go to work the next day and you drive on the other side of the road. And it kind of makes sense. But I'm like, this is like that, but like 20-fold.
Yes.
I guess it's like if nobody has like a calendar, it's easy because nobody like keeps track of notes and stuff. They're just like, whatever, I'll meet you in a week. And they're like, what month? I'm like, I don't care. I'll just see you in a week. This has gone so far off topic. I apologize. So yes, 12 days after Christmas,
okay,
La Befana arrives, bringing treats in shoes.
Yes.
Actually, not in shoes, but yeah.
She'll put them in your shoes, though. And some of you might know Epiphany as the day when, according to Christianity, and I guess specifically Catholicism, they're the ones who maybe talked about it first, I'm not sure, when the three kings are taking the gifts to baby Jesus.
Could they find Jesus?
Yes, they followed the North Star.
I was wondering, and I didn't get too far into this because I have next about some things that are celebrating. And one of the things is like when they went looking for Jesus, and I was like, did they not know? I thought I am not Christian.
They traverse afar.
Well, I know the song. I love the song. We three kings of the Orient are bearing gifts. We traverse afar. That's the only thing I know about them. And I'm like, I just assumed they were like, we'll meet you in Bethlehem.
Yes.
Okay, I'm like, I don't know where he's from. It's like Jesus of Nazareth. He's born in Bethlehem, though. It's weird. Like Leonardo da Vinci, but like wasn't born in Vinci. Everyone would be thrown off, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Jesus was all over. He was traversing around himself.
Yeah,
not
with a couple of the guys.
But...
So that was what was confusing because I'm like, what were they looking? How were they looking for him? Like, have you seen this boy? And they're like holding up a poster.
I think word got out because everybody was talking about Jesus.
Because they ended up in Milan, apparently. And I'm like, where were you coming from that you ended up in Milan?
The three kings ended up in Milan?
This is why it was confusing to me.
That is confusing to me because they're of the Orient, according to the song.
And then you just sort of went slightly west from the Orient.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking they were like,
how did they get to Italy? Who said they were in Milan?
And I didn't go down this rabbit hole because this is not a history podcast, and I didn't want people to be like, I don't care. I just want to get on with what I need, what's important. But I was looking at the Milan thing, and I'll talk about it later. But I was looking at Milan, and they have this whole celebration, and there's a church in Milan, and they said the church has been there since like 300 or something. I have no idea. And in there's some artifacts or something from these three kings. I have really no idea.
Maybe they went after.
300 years later? No. What?
I don't know. I'm just saying maybe the kings didn't go. They weren't in Milan on their way to see baby Jesus. They went to Milan after they saw baby Jesus.
Like a little tour of Europe. They're like, well, since we're traveling, we might as well.
There's no way they went from quote unquote the Orient up to Milan and then back down to Bethlehem.
I wasn't even thinking up and down. I was just thinking they went way too far west at first.
I don't know geography either, but north is involved in that journey.
Could be. I mean, Milan's kind of equal with, I don't know, something.
Milan is not equal with Bethlehem.
No, I guess it's a little far in the north. You're right. Yeah. I'm just thinking the Orient is such a vague location.
It is.
So I'm like, if they're like, we would call it now like Middle East or sort of Western Asia, it's still like you missed it by like
a lot.
Yeah, like 8 countries.
You went the wrong direction entirely.
And then they're like, you have to turn around. You've gone too far. And then
I don't know what the wise men were doing.
Like I know MapQuest was another thing, but my God.
I just know they followed the North Star.
Okay.
And
Oh, is that where you got north from? They went too far north? Is that what you're saying? And then they had to go south
no,
again?
I'm getting that because I've seen a globe.
These days we have Google Maps.
Yeah, but I'm imagining a globe in my mind, and it's quite helpful to me.
It's very 3D.
Okay.
Visual
So
learner.
I'm not going to go into the whole story, but some people believe that La Befana's origins lie in her meeting the wise men and them inviting her to come see baby Jesus and give him gifts.
Interesting.
I don't think that is her origin story. She, in addition to being related to the wise men, according to some, her earlier origins lie with two different goddesses. One is Diana, who we spoke about, I think, around October.
The witches episode, I believe.
Yes. And part of Diana's story, who she is the goddess of the moon, the hunt, and harvest in a way. Vegetation is how it's translated in Italian. I can't remember the exact word that we use in English. So part of her story is that she flies through the air, I think sometimes on animals, with several other women. Like she's invited these women to come fly around with her.
Absolutely love it.
I know, right? It sounds so fun. Especially on animals. Oh my goodness. So cool.
Like the goat is probably having a great time, or if she's riding around on.
Right?
Like,
exactly.
Do you want a chance to fly? The goat's like, I'd love to.
Interesting thing though, I think we talked about this. I haven't found a connection yet, but my brain went ding. There are stories of Diana riding backwards on a goat. And
I'm so confused.
And Befana rides backwards on her broom. And I wonder what that means.
Maybe they just hadn't invented goggles.
Yes.
You know, because if you're flying into the into the wind, into the bugs, it might be like that's a nightmare. So if you fly backwards, you know the goat or the broom knows where it's going.
Yeah.
And you don't have to actually look at it. You can just be looking backwards.
Just chilling.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like on a train. Sometimes it's fun to look backwards. If you look forward, like you're missing everything that's going past. If you look backwards, you get this like chance to see things.
Yeah, I don't know. I was guessing without any information that it had sort of roots in misogyny and the patriarchy.
I was thinking it had just roots in like drunk Giuseppe and drunk Antonio went outside and was like, is that a witch riding backwards? I do not know the accent. I cannot imagine that's Italian.
It might be totally innocent. It might just be they were like, hey, that lady's riding backwards. And she's like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about?
This is how I look riding frontwards.
Yeah. So Diana is riding through the sky with other women. And they, during this time, during the 12 days, I was going to say of Christmas, that is what they are, but the 12 days after the solstice, they ride over fields to sort of bless the harvest and bring on a good harvest for the next year.
That's fair.
Yeah. And so Befana is also related to another goddess named Strenia. And she brought gifts and good wishes to children during Saturnalia. And basically, I don't have any more very specific information on that, but Befana is just kind of related to these two witchy goddesses from Roman culture.
Fascinating. It's also Strenia. Is that it?
Strenia.
Kind of sounds a little like strega, which is the word for witch.
Yes.
So, but it's kind of like also saying that, like, I don't know, two unrelated words just sound very similar because they start with the same letters. I don't have any remote. I was trying to think of an example, but I don't have an example.
Well, it's funny that you say that because now I want to very, very briefly talk about why her name is Befana.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Because no one knows.
That was a very tight ending. That was nice.
Thank you. Okay, so here's what I pieced together. Her name is Befana with a B. Some people do call her Pefana with a P, as in
poppy seed.
Thank you. I could not think of
Purchases.
a P word. And she's also kind of related to some other witches in history. So some people call her Pefana. There's also Perkta and Berkta. Sorry, that's German, and I don't speak German at all. So she's a witch in Germany. Bertha in the UK. Berkta in Austria. All of these women are also related to Hulda in Germany and Frigg in Scandinavia. They're all sort of these witchy women of winter.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I think her name probably comes from a relation to Perkta and then Pefana and then Befana.
Makes sense, though.
Or Berkta and Befana. Something like that.
But it comes from the north, not the south, basically, is what it sounds like.
Yes,
Because I know that we've talked sometimes, some of the traditions in Italy do come from like North Africa or from Turkey or from sort of just or Arabic in nature. And so these sound more like the Germanic in nature, which is interesting.
Yeah, it seems, at least, I don't know that it's even an origin there, but a relationship for sure.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're
I feel like
welcome.
I've learned so much. I've learned
Well, I'm not done yet. I'm going to turn my page.
I thought you were done. I saw you at the end of the page, and I was like, well, it should already...
It's only just the top of the page, but
Well,
that was
I'm
a
ready
page
for it.
turning sound. Okay, so very quickly, I just want to talk about some of the more, I would say, violent traditions around Befana, although it turns out that they might not be so violent as I thought. So, Nathaniel, I think you're going to talk about in a little bit some of the events that you can still go to which celebrate
Correct.
Befana.
Yes.
And I believe...
None of them are violent.
No? Okay. Well, violent against Befana is what I'm thinking when I say violent. Okay,
None of these are violent against Befana either. These are unrelated mostly to Befana. But...
Okay. So there are some celebrations which have been celebrated for hundreds of years and are still celebrated to this day, I think, sometimes. And it's where an effigy, a straw effigy of Befana, is burned, either in a field or sometimes in the piazza in the center of town. And to me, that idea...
It's like burning Santa Claus. What's that about?
I know. Okay, here's the thing. For me, my first thought is, well, that's horrible, because that must harken back to the time of the Italian witch trials, which were horrible, and in which they did burn women.
I love using witch a lot in the witch trials.
Yeah.
Which harken back and in which. I love it.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
good.
Witchy. Sandwich. It's the only thing I can think
sandwich.
of. So, just a slight tangent in relation to that. One of Befana's symbols is a broom. She rides on a broom, right? We've talked lots about her backwards broom. Some people say that this broom signifies, so the little straw ends signify the bonfire, and then the broom signifies the pole that the witch would have been tied to be burned at the stake.
Having done no research on this at all, I can guarantee you that is not true.
Thank you. That sounds so silly. Not to be rude to these people, but
like
they did make up. They made up some history about burning witches, and that's not cool.
Well, that's
not the history is not made up. I guess.
No, but that's I feel like a lot of. No, I get, as two people who live in Italy, one of us is Italian, the other one is on the way to citizenship. Weirdly, the person who does not speak Italian that well, myself, is the Italian here. But so I'm speaking as an Italian now. Some of the history in Italy is 100% made up.
Yes.
And without any basis in anything else whatsoever. And I'm like, did you guys just say like it sounded cool, so you decide? And I say that like
Rome made up their history to make themselves sound cool.
Made up of their history up until a certain point, obviously. But the whole like we had 7 kings and this and that and the lineage of this and the blah 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 blah. Siena with their whatever, the kid of Remus, or the 2 kids.
Romulus and Remus.
Well, yeah, but it was like Romulus killed Remus, but like Remus's 2 kids escaped and they went to Siena and founded Siena, and they one had a black horse, one had a white horse, which is why all of Siena is black and white. Not all of Siena, but that's their 2 big colors. I'm like, it's like, guys, just say we liked black and white. Visually, it was stunning. It worked well. Why'd you make the church black and white? Because it was a great look. We also had a lot of access to black and white stone, made it super easy. But I feel like they go in this like deep dive into like, all right, what if? And then it just, which is cool. I mean, it's like for a country of writers, it's beautiful. But for a country of people who want to be taken seriously, it's
not exactly fact.
It didn't work. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I feel like Romans go to another country and everyone's like, here's our story. And everyone's like, that's not true. There's no way. I don't know, but that's certainly what happened with this tale of what the broom represents. I'm besmirching the good name of Italy.
Yes. No, I don't know. So what other people say it means, and this I think makes a lot more sense to me. The broom exists as an ancient symbol of purifying homes as well as souls.
Fair enough.
Makes sense. Sweep things out. Sweep out all the old dust and such. And so that, to me, really resembles the symbol that Befana is, as being the rebirth of nature. She is renewal, rebirth, all of that.
Makes sense.
The turning of the seasons,
Yeah.
And the new year. And so all of this relates back to these bonfires being burned and the effigy of her in straw being burned, which that's what I was thinking when I thought violent. Like, that's a very aggressive symbol. But here's what it might actually mean. Rather than it being the burning of a witch, it is the symbolic burning of, the previous year into ashes so that a new year and, nature can be reborn from the ashes.
That makes sense. I can see that because they do that for I can never remember the San Giuseppe, San Giovanni, San something where they burn all the olive branches, and that's supposed to be kind of a similar thing. It makes sense because I'm like you can't burn an effigy of a witch who just gave you candy.
I know.
That seems wild.
Exactly.
It's like, excuse me,
Yeah.
that was free. You're welcome. You're not getting any next year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's coal from here on out.
Coal and garlic for you.
Yeah, unless
and
that's what they
not
wanted.
in a happy way.
Yeah, it could be like, I don't know, something terrible. Because garlic even seems like a nice gift. I'm like, we need garlic. We're always out of garlic.
But maybe it's like gross, smelly old garlic.
Could be that.
It's gone bad.
And coal that just doesn't light.
Yeah, and then it's in your shoe, and then your shoe smells like old garlic.
Which, I mean, it's supposed to be like an antifungal, so maybe that's a good thing.
That's true.
Maybe you'll have fun just in it with the home remedies.
She can't be mean. She's just like,
lose.
I guess I can give you some helpful items if
right.
you've not been nice this
No
year.
fun items. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's La Befana, kind of the Mother Nature grandma figure.
All right.
She's great.
See, that's interesting. And so my quick little portion, I just wanted, for those of you following along at home, or at work or in the car, eyes on the road, please, is I wanted to sort of, we've talked about Epiphany. We've talked about Christmas. We've talked about Santo Stefano. And I just wanted to kind of give first and foremost, a list of the days in which things will be closed, like public holidays, but ones in which that, like, even in Rome or Milan or Florence or Siena, you might not find things open. You're also going to find reduced travel on those days. Like the trains won't be running the same schedule. Buses will be running a reduced schedule. Sometimes, not always, there will be strikes on this day because it's not a big travel day. So it's kind of a nice day to strike if you're trying to be polite to people. But so far it's December 8th. That's the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. That's supposed to be the beginning of the Christmas season, as Darcy explained to us 2 episodes ago, I believe. 3 episodes ago, maybe?
I can't remember.
Me either. 2 or 3 episodes ago, Darcy told us that that's when all the Christmas markets will start, is December 8th. And as something she did not mention, I don't think, is that yesterday, which was January 6th, the Epiphany, is when they will all end. That's usually the last day of the Christmas markets until not next year, until later this year, I guess. So December 8th will be a day off. December 25th is a day off. It's Christmas Day. December 24th, not so much. Christmas Eve is pretty much a full day for most people. Santo Stefano is December 26th. That's almost always going to be a holiday for everybody. It's a public holiday. It's a national holiday, but also rarely will you find somebody open. And then obviously New Year's, January 1st is a day off, and then January 6th, Epiphany. And so it's in this kind of a short block. It's just like, I guess, in America, but in America, like, you can still go to the grocery store even like sometimes on Christmas morning. It's just a reduced schedule because there's still some high schoolers working there or something. But in Italy, if you are traveling, if you wanted to kind of make a winter trip in Italy, just keep in mind that from like December 8th all the way to January 6th, there's a couple days off, and that does not include any other smaller holidays that different towns might have. It also doesn't necessarily just include the sort of like laissez-faire, for lack of a better word, sort of attitude that, like pretty much from Ferragosto, which is technically August 15th, but for a lot of people, August 1st, which is the entire month of August is a vacation. And then there's September, October, November, but in there are different holidays. And then December is sort of like one giant holiday. But honestly, between December 8th and January 6th, there's like no work getting done. I mean, the packages I don't think are ever going to get sent. I mean, nothing. It feels like everything sort of grinds to a halt. But that being said, by and large, if you are planning a trip, if you're listening to this for trying to figure out, is Epiphany going to mess up your trip, pretty much between January 6th and Liberation Day on April 26th, or Easter, whenever Easter happens to fall. I know it's like 4 days after, 4 weeks after something or another.
I can't remember how Easter is ever calculated.
Weren't you Christian?
Yes, but I did not keep up with no. That was harsh. I do not partake in that anymore. But I could never figure out when Easter was. My grandfather was a minister, and he would just be like, "Oh, Easter's early this year," or "Easter's late this year," and I would be like, "I don't know what that means. Tell me when I have to put on my cute new dress."
So, thank you. That was
that was a nice little tidbit of Darcy's life.
Fun little look into your life there. So all that being said, between January 6th and whenever Easter is, if it's early or late, or Liberation Day, and Liberation Day is the one that doesn't move, it's April 26th, there's no real public holidays. I mean, it's just back to work. We're in it. and we're here. So if you are coming and you're looking for a sort of discounted, cheaper trip, that is, I mean, of course, there's other Carnevale in Venice is a holiday, things like that. I mean, there are other holidays, there are other things, there are other little celebrations, but not as major as the ones around Christmas by and large.
Would you say, though, you can still book trains and buses and such during the Christmas season, that December 8th to January 6th? It's not like if you book a train ticket, suddenly the trains are going to stop working.
No, yeah, and that's a really good point. It's not that at all. It's just more like Christmas Day, there are trains, for instance, but there are really reduced, which means that it's going to be probably slammed just because there's going to be fewer trains running. So everyone who is traveling is going to be on those days, and you run the risk of the train company striking, which doesn't always mean no trains. I think that's something you and I got used to. It's, for instance, in Rome, when there's a transportation strike, in the mornings and the evenings, it still works. It's just in the middle of the day, it won't. So it's like it's usually like 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., they'll still run the buses. And then between 10 and like 4, they strike. So it's just no getting around. But it's not always it's not typically, it wasn't the buses and the trams and the subways. It's like one of them. Because
they try to set it that way so you're not completely unable to,
get around.
Move around, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the same thing with the trains. They're gonna it's like the high speed won't strike at the same time as the regional or whatever it is. And the same thing with the buses is sometimes it's just, if it's a reduced route, they might, they'll still hit up the places and they'll still pick up people, but they might, like, if you're going to a really small town for some reason, they might skip it unless you specifically ask for them to stop there. So it's just one of those things to stay aware of. Like, I think we've talked about in one of the episodes previously that Italy was ranked, their Train Italia, their train line was ranked the highest or the best in Europe by a third party sort of, rate measuring thing in terms of being online, in terms of cheapness, in terms of availability. And I think they hold to that really well, and including on the holidays. So it's not like you're going to be stranded. And if you're going to go big city to big city, you should be fine. But I think we mentioned Christmas Day is a popular travel day in the States, not so much in Italy. You should probably be in a place by Christmas. So if you want to travel around Christmas, I recommend Christmas Eve or December 27th if you're leaving somewhere, because the 25th and 26th are just not in the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. That's a fun little accent for y'all. So in different cities, there will be different events. A lot of times, almost every town will have a procession, which is just a...
And this is for Epiphany?
This is for Epiphany, okay. Yeah. And this is like, what is that, a Catholic thing, I guess?
Yes.
I don't know, to make sure.
And Christian. Just all the Christians. Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah, we had Epiphany.
No, I meant processions.
Oh, processions, yes. Sorry. Yeah, that's a...
I was like, I've never seen that.
That's definitely a Catholic thing,
Feels
but I think also
pretty
Italian and European.
Okay. So there's a procession. Almost every small town will have a procession. It just means that they're going to be following somebody who has a microphone, who's chanting. Somebody's carrying a cross. There's a little money box. There's kids dressed up. It's a whole thing. But in the bigger cities, there will be bigger processions or other events. Venice, for instance, this is one of the reasons that I know that it's sometimes a big holiday. They have the regatta, the boat races. I'm putting a fun Italian regatta, I think is what we just say in America. But the regatta. And it's a professional, quote unquote, boat. I say professionals, like it's professional teams of people racing boats just down the Grand Canal. It's a fun little event. It's supposed to be, come out and watch with the family. It's cute. They televise it, so we've seen it here in the South. It's kind of a cute little event that if you're in Venice, it seems worth it to check out. Like, why not, kind of thing. Interestingly, there is a small town called Urbania, not near Venice at all, somewhere in the middle of the country. I think it's in La Marca, which is near Umbria. It's near Lazio, near Umbria. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like asking where Idaho is, and you're like, it's kind of like over to the left there. I do roughly know where Idaho is. I learned recently that part of Idaho touches Canada. I had no idea.
It's that far north?
I think so.
Weird.
Somebody listening to this from Idaho is like, no, it doesn't. I'm like 95% sure that it does. I think I just learned that. I was like, that little like skinny stick bit sticks up and touches Canada. Anyway, in Urbania, they consider themselves to be the home of La Befana, which I was curious when I asked earlier. If you knew where it came from, because they are like, it actually came from here. So they have a huge festival in Urbania, and they have a witch that gives out gifts, and they have the whole 9 yards. It's a festival. It's music. It's dressing up. It's a parade. It's the whole. I mean, it's just like they go all out for it. So if this is interesting to you, Urbania might be the town to kind of check it out, especially if you're renting a car, because it seems maybe it's like one of those small towns that like you might not find too many hotels, or Airbnbs. I should also add to a lot of the Epiphany stuff is as you mentioned too, around it's like it kind of centers around children. So if you are traveling with kids, or if you are thinking about traveling with kids under like 12, 11, 10,
I'd say 12.
I'm thinking when
12,
it's
13
fun.
is when you kind of start being like too cool for things.
It. Yeah. So I think it's like if you're traveling with kids under 12, I think this is a good time to go if they're okay being cold, or if you're okay being cold, because a lot of these are about the witches giving out candy, giving out gifts to every kid who shows up. So it's not like you have to be part of the thing. It's just giving out gifts. Piazza Navona in Rome has a massive Christmas market. Obviously goes to January 6th. Yesterday was the last day of the Christmas market. And then, because, it's Rome, the Christmas witch, La Befana, not the Christmas witch, I guess, Epiphany witch, will fly across the piazza and then land and give out gifts. So I wanted to find a video of this because I was like, well, when you say fly, do you mean like well, in America, they fly in and really they just walked in, but we like to exaggerate things. And because I looked up Carnevale, and we'll do an episode on Carnevale in December, or what am I talking about, in February, when it's coming up, because there is a person that kind of crosses the Piazza San Marco.
Yes.
And they do on a high wire. It's like they just fly across the piazza, and it used to be a dove. And then there was the person died like in the 1500s, and they started using a dove or something. Now they use a person again because like we can sacrifice the people. I don't know. Point is,
they do it more safely. Before it was
somebody walking across the wire.
Walking across a high wire, right? And now they're just attached
and they fly like a zip line.
It's like a zip line, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be that person.
So this one is a Christmas witch dressed up. It is somehow sponsored by the fire department, or like they're heavily involved, because it's the fire truck and there's a giant ladder, and they hook up La Befana to the top of the ladder, and it does not look entirely unlike someone being hanged.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they sort of fly, I'm putting air quotes around this, the piazza, while being dangled from it's the most unhinged looking thing I've seen.
I need to look up a video of this.
And then they land, and then, they're also dressed up, as you mentioned, you were talking about the big nose and this and that. They're in a full latex mask, so it's a huge nose. It's like kind of comically large, like very Green Goblin-esque, like very large nose, and they very old skin and the whole 9 yards. There's a picture of the La Befana like giving a handshake to the mayor. It's very weird, but it's not like, if anybody's thinking like, they probably put money into this production, don't think that. It's almost like Party City is going into business, so they bought the mask from Party City. And then, which is a fun little piece of news to let y'all know that Party City is in fact going out of business. And, sorry?
That's kind of a bummer.
There's 7 of you who think that. The rest of us are like, thankfully, new Spirit Halloween's going in there. This is a fun America-centric topic for those of you listening who don't understand what Spirit Halloween or Party City is. But, the point is, it's a wild event, and then she lands and starts giving out candy.
Amazing.
And I think actually I thought I made a note, and I didn't make a note of it, unfortunately, but in Viterbo, which is about an hour and a half north of Rome. We've talked about it before, I think, briefly. It's a cute small town. It's not worth going to if you have only a couple of days in Italy, but if you're traveling around and you want to kind of check out small towns, Viterbo is fascinating. Viterbo, Viterbo. And
it's more like a small city, though, because they still have like big brand name shops and stuff. It's not small like where we are.
Oh, sorry. No, I was thinking small. It's smaller than Siena, but larger than like Tivoli or something like that.
Okay.
And it's got 55-meter long stocking that is stuffed with gifts.
What?
Yeah, and they parade it through town and they hand out the gifts. So a lot of these obviously are really, and I think it's kind of does speak to the spirit of Italian festivals of any kind. It's like that you and I have experienced. Is there's a lot of, I don't know where the money comes from, but there's a lot of giving out things for free to people who are watching. Mm-hmm. I think we've often see stuff where it's like, no, it's just, that's for you. It's a gift. And sometimes like we talked about once, I think the accoutrement, the tree marriage. Mm-hmm. And it was like the beer and wine or beer and water and food that was definitely for the people marrying the trees. They were just like, if you guys want one though, take it. It's fine. It's like beer for everybody. And I'm like, this is not beer for everybody. This is very much
it's like they felt so guilty that we were like almost, there's not a stage, but there was a sense of us being backstage. We were on like a little back street where all the people working, like walking up and down the trees, people would cut down the trees. People were doing heavy work, were having their lunch. And it's like they felt guilty that we saw all the food that they had. And they're like, well, you have to have some. Yeah. Like, you're here.
We're watching them eat, and they're like, you guys are hungry, aren't you? We're not. We're just curious what you're doing. And like, but you guys want some food.
I feel obligated, yeah. There's definitely this Italian a sense of giving things all the time.
Yes, and it's for free. And I'd say that I want to be very clear that it's for free. Just again, if you're coming with your family, you might think you have to give money or donate. You really don't. Like that little money box they walk around with all these processions, you don't have, I mean, you can. People do. I think I love my favorite things is sometimes like the people who, when they're giving like money in the little money box, like especially when it's like a 50 or 100, because obviously euros are different colors. So like you can tell like, oh, that's a 50 euro bill. It's orange. That's a 100 euro bill. That's green. They'll kind of like flash it a little bit as they put it in there. Like, oh, it's 100. Can you guys tell that? I'm just going to go right in the box. 100 euros. There we go. So it's a little like, but anybody doing 5, like kind of palms it into the box. You can't really tell.
I feel like a euro is standard.
Yeah. Well, I'd like that people give 100 because they're just like, they want people to know like, I am doing good.
I'm just saying if you visit and you want to give to the church or the organization, a euro is fine.
And the other things are vaguely, I mean, while it's all related to Epiphany, I think these are also vaguely secular, non-secular. Which one's not religious?
Non-secular.
Really? I thought secular is not religious.
I don't know. If I'm being
Why?
honest.
You would think I would, as like the writer, you know? I have researched this word before. I've looked it up, but I never can remember because I always feel
Befana
like
has. Sorry, I totally interrupted you. Yeah, Befana has pagan roots. So I mean, not that she is seen as pagan at all anymore. She's very agnostic. Is that the word? Maybe?
Sure.
Not related to paganism or any religion or Catholicism or anything. She just is.
And I think, and the only reason I mention that too is if you are like, I would like to come, but I don't really want to do anything like super Christian. Totally understand. This is not necessarily a very Christian thing in terms of like, it's just getting free candy, which makes me sound like I'm taking advantage of the Christians. This is a very heretical episode or blasphemous episode. And then Florence also has a little celebration. It's a procession. It's a parade. They have the 3 magi. I don't understand at all. I mean, people are dressed up, like not dressed up nice, like oh, we're gonna dress up like
costumes.
Because it was a procession that was supposed to have started in the 1400s. At some point, the Medicis got involved, and they were walking, and it's supposed to be like because at first it was everybody, and then it was just the men. It was this whole thing, and then the Medicis got kicked out of town, so they stopped the procession. And then they started it back up again in 97, which is just kind of funny to me because a lot of these things that I look into, like the Carnevale or whatever it is, a lot of them really have like roots in the 1300s. And then stopped entirely till the 90s. And the 90s were crazy. We had like Knight's Tale. We had processions restarting. We had like, I mean, I think a little later we had like Troy and Alexander. But I'm like, we were really into.
Us.
Yeah. What is that? What?
Birth of Me and You in the 90s.
Oh, The Birth of Us. I was like, is that a movie? Is that a TV show? What is that? Should I watch that? No, it just feels like the 90s, like this big research, like Renaissance festivals, I feel like, or Renaissance fairs, like really kicked up a notch, I feel like. So I think people are like super into certain things. And I feel like in Italy, they're like, you know what, if we just did that again. So, but there's people walking around with falcons. Those are somehow involved. I don't understand. It seems absolutely wild. But again, as we've talked about did you ever talk about accoutrement or no? We kind of vaguely once.
Yeah, I don't know if we did a full episode on it.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because in accoutrement, it's this marriage of the tree ceremonies, as you explained. They cut down 2 trees like a week prior. They slowly bring it to town using cows or bulls. They strip the tree of the bark. They attach the trees together, one on top of the other with like splints, and then they have these young guys climb up and down the trees, and it's and
swing from it
and swing from the trees. And they only, I think this year, the first year we went was 2022. It was the first year they had the net underneath to catch these people if they fell, because like, oh, if these people fall, they're for sure dead.
Yes.
And but again, it was like one of those things where it was like they clearly installed the net, but not to necessarily catch anybody because it was
they
so
just did
saggy.
It to be
like,
legal.
Yeah, this is going to hit the ground.
Well, they only did it right because the previous year a cop was there.
I think 2 years previously.
Okay, 2 years prior, a cop was there, and they carried him out of town or something.
There was like some sort of apocryphal story. The Carabinieri were there, and he's like, "You can't do this legally. Like, we can't allow you to do this." So they essentially kidnapped him and held him in a church until the ceremony was over. And I'm like, absolutely unhinged behavior. But what's fascinating is because it's a religious event and not like a town event, there's not like anybody stopping you from doing things.
What do you mean?
Like, if you want to go to the very edge and watch the tree, you can.
Oh, yeah, to a very dangerous point. Yes.
There's no one keeping you back. Like, it's not like I don't know. I think people think of like, we talk about Venice being Disney World, and it's like, there's people always like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's like, no. This is just some guys chopping into a tree, and if you want to climb up too, you want to sneak in there. I think they're not going to stop you. They definitely will.
They definitely will stop you from climbing up the tree. Yeah.
But there's a lot of things they probably won't stop you from doing.
But you can get very close.
Yeah, and I think about that with a lot of these processions and stuff. Like, there's not like rope to keep you back. There's not anything to keep you back. You're just in the crowd with people, and you can I feel like sometimes like in Rome or whatever, there's a parade, you can't step into the street.
We went to the Princess of La Principessa di San Costanza, right?
Or I think just Di Costanza, but yeah.
Thank you. I always think of George
Costanza.
Yes.
No relation.
Yeah, I think it is Costanza. In, what is the town?
Teggiano,
very near us. We can see it from our balcony. And there was this very cool fire dancing thing, which, like you said, it's a very like Ren Fair vibes. And the people who were doing the fire dancing acrobatics things that looked and fire breathing, like very dangerous activities, they looked like they knew what they were doing. However, people were getting way too close to them because they just walked out into one of the piazzas where there was a big crowd and started doing their thing.
Yeah.
And people, you had to kind of back up and create a circle. But there were definitely some people who got way too close to them.
I think, but that's a really good example. It's like, but that, or when they set up the little old school muskets or whatever it is, it's like there's not a, all right, guys, we're gonna need 15 feet of space.
Yeah,
we're gonna
there's
just
no
plug
health
your
and safety.
nothing. It's just. We're going to do fire dancing, and if you're standing next to us, you are going to get burned, and that's part of the game. And so I just throw that out there because a lot of these processions feel like there's no... I think it's a really good example of Italy does value really highly personal responsibility. Like, you are responsible for yourself and the people you came with, like your kids or your spouse or your parents, or whatever it is. And so if you're in the way, that's on you. Like, we have a horse. The horse is going to run you over. You should not be in the way. But there's no like... I'm thinking about all the American parades, and there's those what are those little metal things that everyone always trips over?
I don't remember, but yeah.
But yeah, those little metal balustrades.
They make a gate essentially, so you can't pass a certain point.
So you can't pass it. So this one is just like, you could be in this. You could be in the parade. You could walk in the parade. I mean, they're probably going to kick you out, but it's not. But it's like it's up to you to not do it. It's a whole thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm not making that much sense, but it's like it's wild to me. Somebody's walking around the Falcon, and it's a foot from you, and there's no fence, and the Falcon can just like. I don't know.
Eat you?
Yeah.
Because it's a falcon? Yeah.
And I'm like, that's wild. That's amazing. I mean, I'm very excited by that.
So what you're saying is we should go to this
event we should
Florence.
Totally go to this. Yes. There's a chance to be eaten by a falcon, 100%. That's scars that tell a story. And so I think that's mostly it. Like, there is one in Milan, same thing, 3 Magi, visit a church. It's an old church. It's been there since like 300 something. Apparently they found it on their way to find Jesus. I didn't want to get too far into it.
We need to look this up. I don't believe that.
I know, because it's one of those things I was going to get so involved. I could already tell, like I was already getting into this. I was like, I'm going way too deep. I found the website for the church. They're going, I'm just like, it's too much. This is going to be the only thing I talk about. So I purposely did not look into it, but there are tons of celebrations and events, and most of them do revolve around getting around free candy mostly. And then also there's a witch, and then also there's 3 kings sometimes. But not always, I think. So it's very fun if you're interested in traveling around. But it's also more just, I think we've talked about before, just Rome is also kind of an interesting place to be during these sort of religious times, for lack of a better word, like Epiphana or Christmas or whatever it is, because they do kind of go all out. There is a Christmas market. There are fireworks sometimes, and there's the tree and this and that and the other thing. So it's kind of a fun, like, even if you're not a purveyor, partaker. There we go. Even if you're not a partaker, it's kind of, I think, interesting as like a anthropological experience, like definitely. Just seeing how people celebrate. Because I think for you and I, like, we don't ever take part in a procession. We've never marched in a procession or walked in a procession, but it's fascinating. And just as somebody who watches, be like, man, like whether they're singing in one or whether they're walking around with goats or whether they're,
or the chinti,
or the candles on their head. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's a fascinating, I don't know. It's one of those little things like when you're supposed to go traveling to open up your mind to new experiences. And I feel like coming from America, this was all new experiences, like one after the other. And it feels very, like, again, it's sort of, there's that sense of like, while it's Catholic in name, it feels very much Catholic in name only but it's very like pagan in its act, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's Italy in a nutshell.
Really is. Absolutely is. And that's all I have for you. That's everything.
That was great.
Thank you. I try to keep it under 30 minutes. I'm not sure how successful I was.
I thought it was good, though. I just rattle on about La Befana, and I could continue to because I love her.
She's everybody's grandma.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone.
Yeah, we do. And we hope you will keep listening and maybe recommend us to your friends.
Yes, we would love that. Word of mouth is the best word.
Okay.
There's not really word of anything else,
keep
is there?
shop in that one.
Yeah, thank you. I need to sign off. And Darcy's thinking tanti abbracci, but we can hugs.
Hugs.
Many hugs?
Yeah, many hugs.
Okay. Which is weird because, that's a saying here, tanti abbracci, like many hugs, but nobody hugs in this country.
Really good point.
So I don't know if it's just like how, I mean, I don't know.
It's just a saying. They just say it.
Do English people kiss each other on the cheek? If you're English, you can actually write into us and let us know. Because I feel like English people, I have often noticed they sign off with kisses, but I'm like, no English person ever kissed me on the cheek like Italians kiss me on the cheek.
Yes.
So I'm like, what is like Americans, we say hugs, but then we also hug people.
That's a good point.
We don't kiss people.
And here, baci is kiss, but you don't say tanti baci.
Tanti baci. Yeah, we just kiss you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like kiss somebody and they say, and also hugs, but I don't want to do the hugging part.
Yeah.
I went into hugs a few times thinking somebody was going for a hug and it was not a hug.
It's been
and
really
just
awkward
very
sometimes.
awkward.
Yeah.
Because they're surprised to be held and I'm surprised to be holding. I was like, oh, I thought your arms were big. And it was just like, hold me like in place while they kissed me. It's a whole thing. That'll be some episode in the future.
Yeah.
So
keep listening.
What to expect when you're expecting a hug. We'll figure out that episode. So thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We really appreciate it. We had fun researching La Befana and celebrating with our Christmas tree still up in fragrant. Well, it's also quite fragrant, but in flagrant violation of the Christmas season being December 8th to January 6th. So we're continuing.
It just keeps on going in this household.
It's also a lovely lamp.
It is.
So we enjoy it. Thank you all so much for listening. If you'd like to support us, there are links in the description you can use. Trusted House Sitters is great if you do like house sitting. And if you have never house sat before, it's a lot like babysitting, but for a house.
It's a lot easier than babysitting.
Yeah, I guess it's not all like babysitting. That's a terrible tagline.
It's like the part of babysitting where you happen to be in someone else's house.
It's like babysitting when they're already asleep and there's nothing to do.
Yes.
You can just basically watch TV and put your feet up.
Yeah.
Unless it's not your furniture. I'm not selling this very well. If you like taking care of plants and also pets, it is a fantastic way to see the world.
Yes.
Including Italy. And we have used it many times. So if that is interesting to you, there's a sign up link in the description. Likewise, if you are traveling anytime soon and need to book lodging, you can do through our booking or a go to link in the description. It would we get something like 1% or 2% of your booking total, which is like, I don't know, 20 cents. But it helps.
It does.
If 18,000 of you do it, that's like $3,600. I think that's math that works out.
Is it? I don't know. I
Couldn't
can't
even
do
tell
math.
you. I probably should not have chosen two weird numbers. So thank you all, though, so much. And yeah, if you want to follow us, you can do so at Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And we also have an Instagram account, Only a Bag Podcast at Instagram. And then we have onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to email us. We also have a website, onlyabag.com, through which, of course, you can contact us. But you can also read some articles. A lot of this will be in article form eventually, so you can kind of save it on your phone or on a computer and always refer back to it if you do need to. If you're planning a trip and you're like, where was I going? You can also just message us if you're planning a trip and you're like, what did they say to do? Where did they say to go? Yeah. What was I supposed to do? Just shoot us a message on Instagram. We're very happy to answer those messages and help you plan a trip.
And if you have any suggestions for episodes or big, broad questions, feel free to send those to us and we'll see if we can make an episode around it.
Absolutely. That'll be fun. Kind of a fun little challenge. So thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
And in the words of Darcy Milton, tanti bracci.
Tanti bracci.